Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of my tutorial park. In today's episode I'm going to build a Bobkart in my park. Now if you don't know what a Bobkart is, I will quickly show you an image. So if we go in the browser and we search Bobkart Weekend, which is the maker of this model, you will see some examples of Bobkart. So here we see an image. Basically you have this vehicle here and it travels through this half circular track. And there's this arm here, which grabs power from a rail that's under this thing here, this protective cover. So guests cannot touch it with their hands. But yeah, basically it will travel through a twisty track. Usually there's one rider per vehicle, or two if there's a kid in front. But yeah, their capacity is horrible. You can actually find one of these in a Dutch park, Toverland. And the one in the Dutch park, Toverland, is actually completely covered. And yeah, I really enjoy the ride, but even on a quiet day, there's usually a 45-minute wait to 1 hour. And on busy days, it's impossible to get on, usually 90 minutes to 2 hours. Alright, before I do any building, I think it will be fun to once again name some handymen after people who commented on my last video. Alright, if you also want to be a handyman in my park, just leave a fun or interesting comment on this video and you may get picked to sweep vomit in my park. Alright, to start off the ride, we will start building it in bobsleigh coaster track, and later I will change some of the parts to a dinghy slide track because I think it looks more like what the actual ride looks like. Now I'm gonna make the station fairly long. It's gonna be longer than most of my rides, and then we'll be able to fit a nice amount of vehicles in. And I'm also going to put it a little bit away from the path, and then that will allow me to make a nice queue over here. Something which you should not neglect for new rides. Always keep a bit of space to make a nice looking queue for a ride. Right, I'm gonna... normally I place coasters a bit off the ground. For most rides I do that, but for this kind of ride I'm gonna make it hug the ground, because that's how they are usually built. There are often some elevated parts. We will have a few of those as well, but mostly we can just hug the ground, I think. Alright, here I'm just gonna go down, and for these turns I will just use banked track. Now when I change it later to a dinghy slide track, these parts will become invisible, but we'll take care of that later. Okay, for this kind of track you usually don't see you don't see a lot of different elements. There's usually small drops. They're typically just really small uphill sections. You can have those as well. What you will also often see on these coasters is spirals, usually 360 degrees, like so. Maybe an S-bend. Okay, that's pretty much all the elements you will see. Now, if you're doing a turn, you can also do the track like this. This will also look nice when you later change the ride into dinghy slide. But I like to make it banked. And then the vehicles will also look banked. But yeah, you can also use the normal curves like this. It will just look a little bit different when the vehicles pass over it. Alright, so I will now just quickly finish up the layout. I will just add a few spirals, some S-bends, some hills, etc. And then I'll get back to you. Okay, we now have a layout for the ride. As you can see, several helixes. And other than that, not really much exciting. Try to keep it close to the ground. And here I already prepared a little path for the exit. I didn't prepare the path, but I prepared some groundwork so it can pass under the coaster a few times. You could also have a queue somewhere over here, but I always like to have the station pretty close to a path, and then a straightforward path or a straightforward queue to the ride entrance. Anyway, yeah, I want this track to have I want this ride to have dinghy slide track, but then these helixes become invisible. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an alternative color scheme, and I'm going to use that to color these helixes and also the banking that leads into these helixes. Alright, and for these normal bank curves I will just use normal dinghy slide track later, so these parts can become invisible. Okay, now that we have recolored these helixes, I'm going to use the ride editor plugin, and we're going to select this ride. It's called Bobsleigh Coaster 1. Actually, something which I forgot to do. So I'm going to open up Bobsleigh Coaster 1 here in the cheat menu. I am first going to enable the allow arbitrary ride type changes cheat. I'm going to change the ride into a dinghy slide track. As you can see, now most of the track has become invisible. Now, here in the ride editor plugin, I'm going to select this ride, bobsleigh or dinghy slide 1 it's called now. So now dinghy slide 1 is selected. Here I'm going to change alternate color scheme 1, the color scheme that we used for the helixes. And I'm going to pick ride type here. We're going to set it to bobsleigh coaster. And if we then apply selected changes, now the helixes are there again. Now we still have the other missing track pieces. So for that I'm just going to build some dinghy slide track in the other direction. For this we'll have to disable clearance checks. And then we can just build this track like this in the other direction. And since the original track here that we cannot see is banked, this is normal track, they won't merge. So any vehicle should be able to pass by here without problems. I'm going to just copy and paste a track piece here. And I'm going to finish up all these empty spots here. Alright, I've also recolored the bobsleigh track into grey as well. And now our track for the ride is completed. Okay, I've also put some brakes here, which are now actually invisible since we switched to the dinghy slide track. I could just complete the track here with this other dinghy slide track. But if you want the brake sprites to be visible, we'll have to change the ride to the bobsleigh coaster track again. Now you can see the brakes again. Then we would have to color them in the alternative color scheme 1. Then we change the ride type to the dinghy slide again. And then we once again take our ride editor plugin. Dinghy slide 1 is still selected. And we're gonna change alternative color scheme 1 to the bobsleigh coaster. And now the helixes and the brakes are visible again. Okay, the ride like this usually has vehicles which look like the vehicles on the Alpine coaster. So in cheats we're going to show vehicles from other track types and disable vehicle limits. And we're going to change it to the Alpine coaster cars. Now we're gonna have, let's give it 8 vehicles. And I'm gonna give it 2 cars per train. And let's just quickly put it in test mode and close it again. Now these vehicles wouldn't make it very far in the track as they are now. So we'll have to change it into a powered vehicle, which makes them move on their own. So for that we're gonna take the ride vehicle editor plugin. So it says here edit ride vehicles. Now dinghy slide 1 is already selected. Right now it says all vehicles on this train. Vehicle 1 is selected of train 1. I'm going to set it to same vehicle number on all trains. So now vehicle 1 on all trains is selected. I'm going to click synchronize. And now I'm going to change vehicle 1 into sports cars. So you can see all the front vehicles are now sports cars. And I'm going to change them into variant 1 invisible. So now all these front vehicles are invisible. But as you can see, we now have an acceleration and a max speed stat here, which we can change. Now I'm going to put the track progress back a little bit for these front vehicles. As you can see now, there's a lot of space between all these vehicles. I want the space to be a little bit less. Actually, I'm gonna take vehicle 2 of all these vehicles, and I'm going to change the track progress a little bit. I'm gonna do it bit by bit to allow these vehicles some time to move a bit to the front. Alright, I think that's enough. It's okay if there's a bit of space in between them. Now I'm going to select vehicle 1 again, and I'm going to up the stats a bit for max speed and acceleration. So max speed, something about around 20 or 30, I think should be enough. It's gonna increase it a little bit. Acceleration, we can also make it a little bit higher, I think. Alright, let's now test the ride and see how it does. Right, makes it up the helix here, goes through the S-band, and goes down here. Now in this track it should look like it's banked a bit, and it does. So you wouldn't get that if you just only used a dinghy slide track here. So that's why I used the banked bobsleigh coaster track here in the beginning. As you can see, also banks a little bit through the curve here. It's a pretty subtle effect, so if you don't want to go through all this trouble, just build it with all dinghy slide track in the beginning. It won't look banked in these curves, but I think the effect is so subtle that probably not many people would notice if it didn't bank here. Alright, now we'll have to make the ride look pretty. Now for elevated sections, it will usually look nice to just put some wooden coaster track under it. Now if you want to do it in a nice way, go into cheats and enable the cheat allow building track at invalid heights. And that will allow you to build a wooden coaster track right under these elevated parts. Like so. So this is what it would look like if you didn't use the cheat. It would partly phase through it. Alright, I'm not going to extend it here or it would clip into the track here, which I think doesn't look very nice. Now I am going to copy a straight part here, using the tile inspector. And then I'm gonna paste it here, move it down a little bit, and then I think this elevated section will also look nice. And you can always hide the supports here if you don't want to see them. Easiest way to do that is by taking a track piece and moving it under surface. That will hide the supports. But you should never do that if the support is above water, because then stuff will become glitchy for some people who are viewing the park. Okay, most of these bobcarts are just out in the open air, but I know at least one that's actually has a covered track for the entire duration of the ride. I think it looks pretty nice. So that's what I'm going to do for this ride as well. Now for the cover, I like to use a wooden coaster track. I will just follow the original track like so. And what I also like to do is then put some inverted coaster track on top. Where's it? Over here. Now clearance checks are disabled, and I'm just going to build it so it looks like it's on top of the wooden coaster track, like so. And then let's just recolor it in the same color as the wooden coaster. And we can hide these supports. We'll have to hide these footers later as well. And then when this is done, we could even make these rails here invisible if we want. Or we could keep them visible. It doesn't really matter. And then I like to put some of these jungle roofs here on top. There's quite a few layers here. But I think in the end it will look pretty nice. Something like that. And then here on the side, we could put some of these fences here. Let's also angle this one using the tile inspector. By the way, if you hold Control and click an object, you will immediately select it. So that usually will save you some time. So then I can angle this fence here. And then we'll put some of these posts here. if you then do this for the entire track, I think it will look really nice. Now, probably will also want to do a little bit of ground texturing under here. And in the end also hide these supports. I think that looks pretty cool. Now I'm going to repeat this for the entire track, and I'll probably just fast forward it. Alright, I think it looks really cool with the covering above the track. Now I also already made the exit path, since it was quite difficult to snake it through here. In hindsight, this probably could have also been a nice queue, but I'll just use it for the exit path now, and I'll make the queue somewhere over here. So yeah, that will be the next thing that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give the ride a nice queue and also give it a simple station building. Alright, first my plan was to put the queue over here, but I changed my mind, and I think that having the queue over here right next to the ride makes it look more interesting. Now the station, very blocky, probably could have done a better job at it, but this is not a station tutorial, so I just decided to build something simple. I did play with the roof pattern a bit to make it look a little bit more interesting. But yeah, that's the end result. Here's a Bobkart ride that's fully covered. Now, of course, you don't have to make it fully covered. I just thought it would look cool. Now, and as you also can see, this ride has horrible capacity. Queue time is already 13 or 14 minutes, and the queue isn't that long. So yeah, definitely don't build this if you don't like your having a lot of guests in your queue. Alright, it's once again time to put one of my patrons in the park as an entertainer. Alright, Tempered Steel. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon, it's truly appreciated. And you now have a spot here in the park as the ride attendant for this Bobkart that I built today. Now, support, really appreciate, and I hope you enjoy your spot here in the park. And if you're watching this, you also want to support my channel on Patreon, you will get a spot in the park. If you do so, you can find a link to my Patreon channel in the video description. Alright, that's the end of this tutorial. These Bobkarts, they're getting rarer and rarer in real life, which may be sad if you've never had this experience. On the other end, I'm not gonna miss standing an hour in line for such a ride. Alright, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this story. If you liked it, please leave a like on this video to really help out my channel. I would love to hear in the comments what you think of this tutorial, and if you've ever ridden one of these yourself, I would love to hear that. And if you enjoyed this video, you can always subscribe to my channel. Alright. That was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again in the next one. See you later.